Hey, it's Liberty, and it's been a while, but I am back with some reviews of all the historical fiction books that I've read so far in 2023. According to my Storygraph stats, historical fiction and fantasy are sort of my top genres. Out of the 17 books I've read so far this year, 6 have been historical fiction. And there is more coming. I'm reading 2 as we speak. If you like this, do give it a thumbs up. I make videos sort of all about books, and I'm currently reviewing Jane Eyre chapter by chapter on my shorts. So do check that out and subscribe if you would like to. I'm going to get straight into it. The first book I'm going to talk about is historical fiction and also magical realism, and it's A Golden Fury. This novel concerns the Philosopher's Stone, which in the real world, people have been writing about it and trying to recreate it since like 300 BC at least. Thea is the main character of this story, and she is living in France with her mother, who is a very famous alchemist. The two of them have been working together to try and create the Philosopher's Stone. This is a stone that can turn any metal into gold and also has healing properties. It can bring immortality to the owner. At the start of the novel, Thea and her mother are this close to creating it, but her mother sort of destroys their work in a sort of fit of violent madness. Thea combs through her mother's notes to see if there's any way that she can keep going, and she learns that the stone has a curse attached to those who try and make it and fail. However, we are in France at the time of the Revolution, so Thea is sent to England to be with her father. She has never met him. He's a professor. Oh my God, I can't remember if it's Oxford or Cambridge. It's been a while since I've read this, but one of those universities. Her father is an alchemist, and he sort of has his little group of researchers that he's working with. Thea finds herself the target of several attempts of others to steal her knowledge and experience on how to make the stone, and they very much don't care about the stone's curse. Thea ends up having to make a tough decision whether to complete her mother's life work and potentially go mad or to let it all go. Thea as a character, I really enjoyed reading. Thea and her mother don't have the best relationship because sort of Thea believes her mother is sort of not teaching her, and she sent away the boy that Thea was in love with. Their dynamic is really interesting, and it really affects Thea's mindset and decisions that she makes throughout the novel. Despite sort of having that heritage and speaking the language, in England she's very much a fish out of water. She's got to find a way to protect herself and her friends. We're sort of situated within a race to make the Philosopher's Stone by alchemists all around the world, in an age where alchemy isn't taken that seriously by the rest of society. But we mustn't forget that we're also in post-medieval Europe, so we've got, racial, religious prejudices and persecution and diseases that come into play as well. There's a character I don't want to spoil too much about, but Thea meets them in a certain way, and they're on opposite sides, and the relationship between those characters, they change each other through meeting, and that is just, I love that. This is also a debut novel, so I'm really excited to see what else that this author can come up with. I gave it 3.75 stars on Storygraph. The next book that I'm going to be talking about is Medieval, and it is The Devil's Consort by Anne O'Brien. I love Anne O'Brien. I've read many of her books, and this one is all about my queen, my medieval love, Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine. This novel starts with Eleanor. She's just become the Duchess of Aquitaine at a really young age. She's the most powerful and desired heiress in Europe. She finds herself engaged and married to Prince Louis, who is the French Dauphin, and he quickly becomes the King of France, and she then quickly becomes the Queen. As a married couple, they could not be more different. Louis expected to spend his life in the church, and Eleanor very much expected a strong, passionate husband who was going to sort of help her keep control of Aquitaine, because the lords are spirited, to say the least. We follow Eleanor and Louis as they end up going on crusade to the Holy Land. The Pope intervenes with their marriage, and their marriage keeps falling apart day by day. When I say that I love Eleanor of Aquitaine, I hope I'm making it clear how much. The writing in this novel was so good. I felt the strain and the annoyance that Eleanor felt. She was just trying to make moves. She was trying to put herself in a position where she was comfortable, where she was happy, and it kept coming up against these obstacles and men. Because she was a woman and a wife, she didn't have certain rights, and she couldn't get a divorce, for example. It took her years. I personally don't subscribe to the rumour about her and a certain relative of hers, so it was slightly disappointing to read this novel and find that sort of passed off as the right theory. To me, it was clearly an attempt to slur her in the worst possible way. In medieval Europe, incest is that final trump card to discredit someone, especially a woman. But other than that, I really love this book. And, I love Eleanor, and her voice is just exactly how I imagined her. And of course, as we know, Eleanor does eventually get that divorce or annulment that she was striving for. So we follow Eleanor through that process and how she gets entangled with the Plantagenets, both Geoffrey and his son Henry, who's determined to become the King of England. Just read this, experience Eleanor of Aquitaine. She's worth it. I gave it 4 stars on Storygraph. Next, I'm going to talk about the queer principles of Kit Webb. We follow 2 characters. The first is Percy, Lord Holland, and the second is Kit Webb, who used to be a highwayman called Gladhand Jack, but now he's running a coffee shop in London. Percy is attempting to save himself and his childhood best friend, who's now his stepmother, from his father, who is just a horrible, horrible person. To do so, he needs to get his hands on a particular book of his mother's, which his father just keeps on his person at all times. Kit is roped in to help Percy rob his father, and they make a great partnership in more ways than one. They couldn't come from more different worlds, yet they find themselves drawn to each other. Kit teaches Percy sort of the best way to get his hands on the book, and the lessons start. Kit finds he misses the rush of being a highwayman, and when the time comes to sort of make their plans a reality, he gets in on the action. Do things go well? I won't tell you, you'll have to find that out for yourself. Look, this might be a controversial opinion, but this book, I found it was okay. I mean, I know people love it, and I think that sort of my experience with this book suffered with sort of 2 issues. One being my expectations were quite high, and also 2, I listened to this as an audiobook, and I think I just didn't resonate with their voices, literally, like the way I was hearing them. I really enjoyed the plot. I never wanted to stop listening, but I just didn't find myself caring about Kit as a character in any way, really. I resonated with Percy quite a lot. I wanted him to be okay. I wanted him to get through. I wanted him to succeed. And I really sort of connected with his personality and with his narrative voice. But I just had a block with Kit. There were many secondary characters in there that I really loved to read and that come into the plot in various ways, which I thought was done quite well. I didn't expect some of the twists and turns that happened, but yeah, I would very much recommend reading this physically. The final 3 books I'm going to talk about are all historical mysteries, and they're all set in the 19th century, but sort of either end. The first book is Death at the Manor, and this is the 3rd book in the Lily Adler murder mystery series, which is set in sort of Regency England. I think we're at around 1819 now. In the 3rd book. Lily is a recent and early widow. She's in her 20s. Lily is travelling to go and spend time with her favourite aunt, who she loves, along with her friends, Lord and Lady Caraway, who we know from the 1st book. Conveniently, her aunt does not live far from Matthew Spencer, who is a handsome acquaintance that they all met when they were solving the mystery in the 2nd novel. The group hear about a local ghost, so of course they go and visit the house to try and, talk to the family to find out about this ghost. But they find themselves literally walking into the middle of a locked room murder mystery. The matriarch of the house has just been found dead in her bedroom, which was locked. Of course, Lily and Ophelia Caraway, they sort of get straight into solving the mystery. She has both a son and a daughter, and they both have motives to want her dead. Lily's aunt and her friend provide sort of invaluable help as locals to the investigation, and they sort of have to get people to stop believing that it was a ghost that murdered her. I was sad we didn't get to experience the charms of Captain Jack Hartley, who was the sort of best friend of Lily's husband that we sort of meet in the 1st novel, and they become close across the first 2 books. Obviously, this is sort of allowing for a little romance between Lily and Mr. Spencer, but I am holding out that Captain Jack should realise any moment now that he is in fact in love with Lily. So I can't wait to read on in the series for their sort of inevitable romantic entanglement. I think their endgame. There is diversity in this book. Obviously, we get to experience actual racial diversity and what that looked like in Regency England. I really enjoy this series. I mean, this book isn't my favourite. I think the 2nd one is probably my favourite, but I love Lily, Ophelia and Jack, and I will keep reading this series until they stop being published. This was 3.5 stars on Storygraph. Next, we're moving forward in time to 1899 to the Mayfair Hotel, the most fashionable hotel in London. Murder at the Mayfair Hotel follows Cleopatra Fox, who is sort of the poor relation of her family. She moves to the Mayfair Hotel. Her uncle-in-law runs it. Her grandmother has just died, and they are the only family that she has left. She's been estranged from her mother's side of the family, so she very much has to sort of meet them all and it's a completely new environment for her, obviously. She's trying to find her place. She's the poor relation. It's Christmas Eve, which makes it even worse because everyone's busy. The day that she arrives, a guest is poisoned, and so the sort of whole hotel is thrown into chaos. She gets to know the staff of the hotel quite well, and, you know, some of the guests. Cleo very much takes it upon herself to try and find the killer and, you know, unmask their motives before they kill again, especially as the New Year's Eve ball is coming up. It's sort of one of the big moments in the year for the hotel, and this murder could sort of break their reputation. And Scotland Yard don't seem to be too much help. Cleo, bless her, doesn't really know who to trust. She's obviously new to this whole environment, and she makes several mistakes that she has to fix in order to sort of carry on with her investigation. While I enjoyed the mystery of it all and sort of getting to know all of the various guests and people in the hotel, I wasn't too invested in Cleo. I feel like she made some mistakes that I don't know if she learnt from very much, and like I don't know if it would be realistic that someone would sort of jump to some of the conclusions that she jumped to. I enjoy some of the other characters, including Harry Armitage. This novel sets up Cleo and sort of another character sort of coming together to start a detective agency. So they will be back, but I don't know if I will. I don't think I enjoyed it enough to sort of carry on. I gave it 3 or 3.25, I couldn't really decide between them on Storygraph. For my final book, we are sort of moving a little bit back in time to 1887, and this is Felicity Carroll and The Perilous Pursuit. This is the first book in a series. Felicity Carroll is very much a product of the 19th century. She's incredibly interested in science and keen on education. Her family is rich, so she was able to study at university. The last thing she wants to do is sort of get married to a rich family of status, but that is exactly what her father wants her to do. She's not exactly a proper Victorian woman. She's busy doing experiments in her lab and setting fire to said lab. One of her old teachers gets murdered in the British Museum, and a priceless manuscript connected to King Arthur is stolen from him. This is set in a time where sort of forensics is sort of coming through, but it's not widely accepted. Felicity decides she is going to catch the killer, and she's going to find out who killed her mentor and dearest friend. She comes into contact with a Scotland Yard inspector, Jackson Davies, who is not exactly bad looking. He finds her incredibly annoying, though, trying to sort of butt her way into his case. Though he does acknowledge her intelligence and her photographic memory, when more relics pertaining to King Arthur get stolen and more people get murdered, he's sort of forced to sort of let her help him out with the investigation. I love all their interactions. They have such chemistry. So when we see sort of a charismatic and handsome Duke come onto the scene, like, I didn't really fall for that. When he becomes a potential target, a potential connection between the victims comes into play. I loved all of this. Sometimes I felt it went to places where I was a little bored, but very much I loved Felicity, I loved Jackson, I loved them together. I probably will pick up the next book to see where it goes. This is definitely 3.5 on Storygraph. Thank you for watching. That was a few historical fiction books that I have read this year. It's my favourite genre to read, so there will be more. In fact, I'm currently reading a novel set in 1340s, which I'm really enjoying. It doesn't really stray away from the horrors of war, which breaks my heart, but I'm having fun, I'm enjoying it. And if you enjoyed this video, do give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to see more of my content. Happy reading.